The quiet strength. Have you ever met someone who seems completely comfortable in their own skin? Someone who doesn't need constant validation, doesn't chase approval, and somehow remains steady no matter what chaos unfolds around them. These people possess something rare. Something most of us spend our entire lives searching for. It's not confidence, though they have it. It's not independence in the traditional sense, though that's part of it. It's emotional independence. And the people who truly have it share one specific trait that separates them from everyone else. Today, we're going to explore what that trait is, why it matters, and how recognizing it might change the way you see yourself and the people around you. But first, let's understand what emotional independence actually means, because most people get this completely wrong. What emotional independence really is. Emotional independence isn't about being cold, distant, or refusing to connect with others. That's emotional avoidance, and it's actually the opposite of what we're talking about. Emotionally independent people feel deeply. They form meaningful relationships. They care about others. But here's the difference: their sense of worth, their mood, and their inner peace don't depend on external validation or other people's opinions. Think about it like this. Most people are like boats tethered to a dock. When the dock shakes, they shake. When someone pulls the rope, they move. Their emotional state is constantly at the mercy of external forces, a critical comment, a delayed text message, someone's approval or disapproval. Emotionally independent people are different. They're still connected to others, but they're anchored from within. External storms might affect them, but they don't capsize. They process emotions internally first, rather than outsourcing their emotional regulation to others. This doesn't mean they never feel hurt or never seek support. It means they don't need others to complete them or validate their existence. And this brings us closer to understanding that rare trait they all share. The hidden trait revealed. So what is this rare trait that emotionally independent people share? It's this: they have developed a stable internal narrative. Let me explain what this means, because it's more profound than it might sound at first. Most people's sense of self is like a story written by committee. One day you feel confident because someone complimented you. The next day you feel worthless because someone criticized you. Your self-perception constantly shifts based on external feedback, changing like the weather. Emotionally independent people have something different. They've built a coherent, stable story about who they are, one that isn't easily rewritten by others. This internal narrative isn't rigid or defensive. It's honest. They know their strengths and accept their weaknesses. They acknowledge their past without being defined by it. They understand their values and make decisions aligned with them, regardless of social pressure. When someone criticizes them, they can consider whether the feedback is valid without their entire identity crumbling. When someone praises them, they appreciate it without becoming addicted to it. This stable internal narrative acts like a compass. No matter how disorienting the external world becomes, they always know which direction is north. And this changes everything about how they move through life. How this trait manifests in daily life. Let's look at how this rare trait shows up in everyday situations, because that's where you really see the difference. Imagine two coworkers receive critical feedback from their boss. The first person spirals. They question everything about themselves. They can't sleep that night. They need to call 3 friends for reassurance. Their entire week is derailed. The second person, emotionally independent, processes the feedback differently. They ask themselves, is this criticism accurate? Does it align with my own assessment? If it does, they adjust. If it doesn't, they note the perspective but don't internalize it as truth. Their internal narrative remains stable. Or consider relationships. Someone who lacks emotional independence might say, I need you to be happy, or you complete me. It sounds romantic, but it's actually a setup for codependency. An emotionally independent person says, I choose you, and I'm committed to growing with you, but my happiness isn't your responsibility. They bring wholeness to the relationship rather than looking for someone to fill their gaps. In social situations, while others are constantly reading the room, adjusting their personality to be liked, the emotionally independent person shows up authentically. They're not performing. They're not seeking approval. They're simply present. This doesn't make them antisocial or arrogant. Often, they're the most genuinely interested in others because they're not trapped in self-focused anxiety about how they're being perceived. Why most people struggle with this? If this trait is so valuable, why don't more people have it? The answer reveals something important about how we develop emotionally. From childhood, most of us are taught to look outward for validation. We learn that we're good when adults approve and bad when they don't. Our school systems reinforce this with grades and gold stars. Social media has amplified it exponentially. Now we can quantify our worth in likes and followers. We develop what psychologists call an external locus of control. Our sense of self becomes dependent on feedback loops from the outside world. Breaking this pattern requires something difficult. You have to go through a period where you stop seeking external validation before you've fully developed internal validation. It's like learning to swim. There's a moment where you have to let go of the edge of the pool before you know you can float. Most people never take that risk. The discomfort of not knowing if they're okay without outside confirmation feels too threatening. So they stay tethered to external validation their entire lives, never discovering the freedom that comes from a stable internal narrative. There's also a cultural component. In many societies, emotional independence is confused with selfishness or is seen as a rejection of community values. But that's a misunderstanding of what this trait actually is. The benefits you gain. When you develop this rare trait, this stable internal narrative, the benefits touch every area of your life. First, your relationships improve dramatically. Paradoxically, when you stop needing people to complete you, your connections become more genuine. You can love without clinging, care without controlling, and be intimate without losing yourself. Second, your decision-making becomes clearer. Without the constant noise of "what will people think," you can hear your own values and priorities. Career choices, life directions, even small daily decisions become more aligned with who you actually are. Third, your resilience skyrockets. Life will bring criticism, rejection, and failure to everyone. But when your self-worth isn't dependent on external circumstances, these challenges become feedback rather than threats. You can learn and adapt without being destroyed. Fourth, you experience a profound sense of inner peace. The exhausting work of constantly monitoring others' reactions, seeking approval, and managing your image can finally stop. You can simply exist without performing. And finally, you become more compassionate. When you're not desperately trying to prop up your own fragile self-image, you have more emotional energy to genuinely care about others. You can hold space for someone else's pain without making it about yourself. This is the freedom that emotionally independent people experience, not freedom from connection, but freedom within connection. How to develop this trait? The good news is that emotional independence isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you can develop, though it requires intentional practice. Start by noticing your emotional patterns. When do you feel most anxious or insecure? Often, it's when you're waiting for external validation. When someone doesn't text back, when a post gets fewer likes than expected, when you're not invited to something. These moments reveal where you've outsourced your emotional stability. Next, practice self-validation. After you accomplish something, before you share it or seek feedback, sit with it yourself. Ask, how do I feel about this? What does this mean to me? Let your own assessment come first. Develop self-awareness through reflection. Journaling is incredibly powerful for this. Write about your values, your boundaries, your goals, not what you think they should be, but what they actually are. This builds that internal narrative we've been talking about. Create space for solitude. Emotionally independent people are comfortable being alone because they've learned to be good company for themselves. If you can't sit alone without distraction for even 30 minutes, that's a sign that your relationship with yourself needs attention. Most importantly, practice making small decisions based on your own judgment rather than consensus. Start with low-stakes choices and gradually build up. This strengthens your trust in your own internal compass. Remember, developing emotional independence isn't about becoming invulnerable or disconnected. It's about building a foundation strong enough that you can connect deeply without losing yourself. The transformation ahead. Understanding this rare trait, this stable internal narrative that emotionally independent people share, is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you start building it in your own life. It won't happen overnight. You'll have moments where you slip back into seeking validation, where someone's opinion shakes you more than you'd like, where you catch yourself performing rather than being authentic. That's normal. That's part of the process. But gradually, something shifts. The opinions of others become interesting data points rather than verdicts on your worth. Criticism stings less. Praise feels nice but not necessary. You start making choices that align with your values even when they're unpopular. And perhaps most profoundly, you discover that the love and connection you've been seeking externally were available internally all along. Not as a replacement for human connection, but as the foundation that makes genuine connection possible. Emotionally independent people aren't superhuman. They're simply people who've done the work of knowing themselves well enough that they don't need constant external confirmation of their existence. That same possibility exists for you. The question is, are you ready to start building your own stable internal narrative? Are you willing to let go of the dock and discover you can anchor yourself? The people who are truly free in this world aren't those without connections. They're those who are connected from a place of wholeness rather than need. And that freedom is available to anyone willing to develop this one rare trait. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on one area of your life where you're still seeking external validation. Just one. Notice it without judgment. That awareness is the first step toward emotional independence. If you found this valuable, consider subscribing for more insights on psychology, personal growth, and understanding human behavior. And let me know in the comments, what's one way you're working on building emotional independence in your own life? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.